So this will be fun for us to do, Tom, because I have a feeling we might agree, we might disagree, we might be somewhere in the middle on this. And it's in the oddity of all of this. I know Corey wrote a piece for us this week on Warchant.com about Florida State dropping in the rankings, and I agree with him. I don't know how you win the game on the road against Clemson. They've lost 2 times in like 20 years in Clemson, and you win a game there, and somehow you drop in the polls. And then he also wrote in that the very thing I was thinking when I saw the headline. So I'm glad he acknowledged it. Who the hell cares? It doesn't really matter where we're ranked in the AP poll or the coaches poll. And we all know the bottom line is this for Florida State. If Florida State continues to win football games, they will go to the college football playoff. Now, where you'll wonder, but you were wondering this before the season, and you're still going to wonder it, it's because of the sorry league that we're in. Where you'll wonder about Florida State is what if there are, in a year of seemingly a lot of parity, what if there are a lot of 11-1 teams? What if Florida State's 11-1? And so is four other teams, or so are, four other teams. Now you wonder how we're perceived, how Florida State's perceived, because then it is going to be a subjective thing where people are going to say, well, they just haven't looked good. I think that so-and-so looks better. And that is the problem within the sport that has existed forever, is we don't really settle it on the field. We don't. I mean, we have this kind of every 20 years or so, there's sort of this arbitrary, well, let's try this. Let's manipulate this and try this. And, it's better than it used to be to some extent, but it is still to some degree also, unfortunately, subjective. So Florida State's got to play better for a lot of reasons. Florida State's got to play better because they're going to get beat if they don't, but also because they're trying to win a beauty contest to some extent. So I give you that backdrop. We haven't had a chance to talk about this together. Yesterday, Bill Connolly came out, or maybe it was the day before. I read it yesterday, so that's all that matters, damn it. With the ranking of the undefeated teams. And he had the 27 undefeated college football teams and where they stand. And in fairness to Bill Connolly, who I think does a great job, he wrote, following an intense weekend with huge headliners, Ohio State over Notre Dame, Florida State over Clemson, Utah over UCLA, Oregon over Colorado. 27 teams head into week 5 with huge aspirations and no blemishes. With only one unbeaten versus unbeaten matchup on the docket, that would be Kansas and Texas, by the way, and 6 unbeaten teams idle, this list could remain pretty large for another week. Of this week's 21 active unbeatens, his polling, the way he does it, SP Plus, projects them to win an average of 15.3 games. So we're going to lose a few of them this week, we think, maybe, perhaps. So let's celebrate the tremendous 27, as he says. He's got Washington number 1. Now, I got to tell you, Tom, right off the bat, I agree with him. I think Washington looks like the best team in football. I watch a lot of Washington because I like him. And I've also won money on them, if I'm being truthful. And I think their offense is sensational. It is something to behold. I think they got athletes everywhere. Quietly, somehow Washington just accrued a ton of talent over the last 3 years. And everywhere you look, there's an NFL guy. It's bizarre. I think Oregon's really good. I think you do too, by the way. There are several teams on this list. He's got Georgia at number 2. Georgia hasn't played well. We know they have a ton of talent. We know they're loaded, but they've kind of been sleepwalking. So he punished them a little bit and put them at number 2. He's got Ohio State at number 3. I would not. I think Ohio State is a little bit like we are in the sense that they got to win over Notre Dame on the road, so you shouldn't be punished. But they didn't look real good doing it. They weren't great. Their defense was very, very good, but they were kind of less than stellar offensively. He's got Michigan at number 4. Who would know? Michigan hasn't played anybody with a pulse. Oregon's 5. I would have had him at 2, probably. Texas at 6. Oklahoma at 7. No way, no how. I watch Oklahoma. They're not that impressive, but they are good. Penn State, I would have higher. He's got him 8. And you're wondering, where the hell is Florida State? Well, they're number 9. They're number 9 on the Bill Connolly list here of the undefeated teams. And he writes this about Florida State, and then we will commence the discussion. Never question Florida State's resilience. The Noles trailed LSU at halftime, stormed back to win in Orlando. They trailed Clemson by 10 early on the road and came back. On a strange, windy, injury-plagued day at Boston College, they gave up a 19-0 run, but stabilized in time to win the game by 2. Eventually, having to be resilient all the time might backfire, especially against a schedule that features 4 current unbeatens in the next 6. But Mike Norvell's Noles are showing title-level maturity for sure. All right, so a nice little write-up there. He's got SC, by the way. That would be USC at 10th, which is kind of surprising to me. But that's where we stand. You would have us, just out of curiosity, because I don't know, where would you rank us amongst the unbeatens?
Well, I'd have to go blow by blow more than like looking at the 8 in front of us and saying we deserve to be 3rd. So if you go blow by blow, Washington, I'd have us ahead of. I get that they scored a ton of points, but they played Boise, Tulsa, Michigan State, and Cal. I mean, what's their best win? Name their best win.
Yeah, no, I got you.
Georgia, you'd be going by recruiting classes if you have Georgia ahead of Florida State. So,
let me interrupt you real quick because I can see where this is going. If you are ranking teams by who they've beaten, Florida State's the number 1 team in the country.
It's an argument you could make, and I think
I think it's a very compelling argument that you can make. I think we're probably, I don't know. I mean, it's a pretty ironclad argument.
If you want to ding them for Boston College, then put them at 2 or 3. But Oregon hadn't beat anybody. That Texas Tech win looks a lot less valuable when Texas Tech has lost to Wyoming and West Virginia. West Virginia's beaten Texas Tech 2013. Yeah. So that was that one weird spread. Remember in week 2, and they're thinking, "Wow, what does Vegas know that nobody else does? That this is within a touchdown." Well, it's not like Colorado's an impressive win. Let's that's ridiculous too. So Florida State has
again, by wins, you are correct, I think.
Well, the Ohio State one's a joke too. So if you want to say that the Notre Dame road win and the Clemson road win are a wash, or maybe a little bit less than a wash because Notre Dame was ranked and Clemson wasn't, I'll grant you that and say advantage Ohio State in that situation.
Yeah, but we got LSU, so that's the end of that.
It's like the game didn't exist. It's like we never played LSU. That's my problem with this ranking system. It's like the LSU win and the pulling away in the second half never existed. I don't understand why.
Dude. You know what it does, Tom? I'll tell you what it does. It mirrors the way we feel watching our team. Where's that team? Where's the Florida State team that did that? They haven't existed since that game. It's bizarre. Where is that team? They're nowhere to be found. I'm not saying we should be penalized for that, but I'm telling you, that's what it is. People are watching the games, and they're going, And so are we a little bit. But we're also doing it while fighting with ourselves because we know it's absurd not to give them credit for being 4-0 and for winning those 2 games. We got to give them credit for that, but we know they're not right.
Well, this is our brother. We can pick on them, but you can't.
Right.
These are unquestionably the 2 best wins in the country.
Yeah.
And if you look at that list that Connolly put together of the strength of schedule, I don't give a damn about SB Plus or the FPI. The FPI, he's already said that both of these rating systems, especially the FPI, has a lag effect. So you're you're drawing on past season information, which in the era of the transfer portal NIL is outdated. That's useless to me. I don't care what happened last year. Doesn't matter. What matters is this year. And if you look at the strength of the record and the quality of the wins, every team that's in front of Florida State on that list is in the 70s or worse, might be the 60s, or worse in terms of the strength of schedule. Florida State's top 30. So what are we doing here? They have the best wins. They have the best resume. Now, if you want to ding them for Boston College and say that takes them off the pristine number 1 level, fine. But they are squarely in the top 4. And this is where it's important to me, too. You're right. When you laid it out there in the beginning, first impressions are very, very important because the College Football Playoff Committee is based with humans. And so they're consuming all of this information right now. And this is going to impact when they put out their first rating system in October. And unless we get a little bit lucky here, and a couple of these ACC teams continue to ascend in the rankings because they were so slow in the uptake in the preseason that Miami's only getting into the top 20. North Carolina's only barely into the top 20. Duke, same thing. You need them to stay strong, LSU to rebound in order to get credit for wins that I think we're getting too little credit for. And when you're trying to jostle between, it could be between, playing in New Orleans or playing in Pasadena or any other thing with a 4 or a 5, I worry that the first impression of the ranking system and the gravity of that system is going to hurt us because of the conversations that are being had right now, which are not warranted. They're not warranted.
No, I think Florida State's just got to keep winning. I'm not overly concerned because that win over Duke, if you get it, it's going to be a good one. The win over Miami, if you get it, it's going to be a good one. I suspect that even the road win at the end of the year against Florida, if you get it, is going to be a pretty decent one because I don't think Florida's terrible. I don't. I know everybody else does, but I don't. And I don't think they're good. I'm not trying to tell you they're a good team, but they're just a slightly above average football team that has some real players on defense. I think the Florida defense is for real.
It's the defense. Yeah, the offensive matchup against our defense is great. They want to run the ball, we'll stop it, and then it's Mertz versus the secondary.
I agree, but it's not as if we don't have a history of making kids who don't look like they can play at quarterback suddenly look very, very good.
Correct. I think it's for the local market to get nitpicky and the national market to reward what are the two best wins. This is what I don't understand. Like, it's not like we started the season at 22 or unranked and we've come such a long way.
Right.
We beat a top 5 team out the gate. Yeah. Where would they have put us if Clemson's ranked 19th this weekend or 18th like Colorado was? You think Clemson's better than Colorado?
Yes.
I mean, so is that the win that Oregon's getting credit for, or is it the blowout scores against nobodies?
No, I think it's and this is the thing, right? We do this all the time. All of us do to some extent. I'm guilty of it too. I mean, watching teams, you can, like, for example, I respect your ability to assess a player's value in terms of their talent or where they would land in a draft or something. You and I do this together all the time. We've done it for years. We'll look at a player and say, we think he's a second rounder, a fifth rounder, a third. We're usually pretty close to accurate. Sometimes we're off, but for the most part, we get it pretty right. When you watch Oregon play or you watch Washington play, there's no doubt they got athletes everywhere. It's amazing what they've done at Washington in particular. I'm blown away. And so when I see them and I think to myself, well, how would I score this Florida State versus Washington on a neutral field? I think I'm picking Washington. I think I am right now. Doesn't mean I would 3 weeks from now, because I do agree with this. And this is the other part because it's fluid. If we start playing good football, look out, because the ingredients are there to be the best team in the country. Or certainly one of the 2 or 3 best teams in the country, at the very least. The ingredients are there. They just haven't put the ingredients together to make anything that's worth eating, and yet they're 4-0. So it's just bizarre. This is the weirdest 4-0 with 2 wins over very significant teams that matter that I can ever remember. And we've had a lot of 4-0 teams. I mean, I've been coming to Florida State games since 1980, 79,
we had one last year. We had one last year too.
Yeah, so we've had a bunch of different 4-0 teams, and we've always evaluated them in certain ways, right? And you look at them and you're like, oh, that's a dominant team, or that's we haven't played anybody, thank God. Or that's and this is the weirdest collection of wins I have ever seen.